They laughed when I walked into the shooting range, with worn-out shoes, silver-streaked hair, and eyes that had no interest in impressing anyone. They bet I didn't even know how to load a magazine, didn't know how to stand. Some thought I was just passing by for fun, but what they didn't know was that just minutes later, a CIA officer would quietly ask for my name. I didn't come to prove anything. I came because I once lost everything, my brother, my team, and my faith in decisions made by people who never listened to technicians, like me. I don't seek justice through noise. I find it in precision, in each breath, each shot, each forgotten piece of data. If you've ever been underestimated, ever lived quietly in a world that's far too loud, then maybe my story is your story too. Laughter echoed like rusted chains clanging against the steel beams of the Concord Ridge Shooting Center. Evelyn Moraine had just stepped past the cold steel doors. Her black flats, dusted and faded barely, made a sound on the concrete floor. A dry breeze from the industrial ventilation swept through her graying hair, strands fluttering like old thread left uncut. From the row of seats on the left, whispers surfaced, then bloomed into open ridicule. No effort to hide it, no need for a reason. A bulky man in camo gear nudged his friend with a smirk, gesturing toward her with his chin. Who let Grandma in thought this was yoga class? Laughter erupted again, ricocheting off the metal walls like hammers pounding against the back of the neck. Evelyn didn't react. She walked slowly, eyes focused on nothing in particular, holding a crumpled invitation, an open shoot hosted by the local veterans group. Not because she wanted attention, not to prove anything, simply because she needed the sound of gunfire. She needed to feel the recoil in her hands, to know she was still alive. After everything, she passed the registration desk where a young girl with crimson nails skimmed over Evelyn's body like she was evaluating outdated inventory. You sure about this? We don't take beginners here. I'm here to shoot, Evelyn said, her voice soft enough to be mistaken for a passing breeze. She was assigned to Lane 9. To her right, a group of men assembling customized AR-15s. To her left, a father, adjusting his son's scope. The boy, no more than 13, watched as if building Legos. No one really saw her. Or rather, everyone did, just waiting to see her fail. Evelyn slowly opened her cloth bag, pulling out a pair of worn leather shooting gloves cracked at the knuckles. She put them on deliberately, like a ritual. At the weapons table, the range manager, a bald man wearing welding goggles instead of glasses, glanced at her and shook his head. You sure? 9mm kicks harder. Got some .22s if you want. Something easier. I want to feel the recoil, Evelyn said. Nothing more. He shrugged, handing her a used Glock 17. As she returned to her lane, she noticed a man at the far end of the hall. White shirt, khakis, unarmed, but with eyes sharp as a scalpel. He wasn't looking at her, but somehow was tracking her every movement with a mind that didn't forget. Evelyn checked the magazine, loaded it, racked the slide. She raised the gun, adjusted her stance, breathed. 1 breath in, 2 out. Just like before 2010, before her entire team in Kandahar was wiped out by a mission order built on faulty data. Her brother, an electronic systems specialist, among them. The first shot rang out. No reaction. Second, third, still nothing. But by the 5th, the digital board beeped oddly, near perfect grouping. A voice called from the back. Hey, who's Moraine? Just jumped to rank 12. Evelyn didn't look back. She swapped magazines, pushed the target further out, and continued. This time, the sound of her shots was swallowed by silence, not admiration, but confusion. No one understood what they were witnessing. When she finished, Evelyn set the gun down, removed her ear protection, and looked down the corridor. The man in the white shirt was still there. This time, he was looking straight at her, not like an observer, but like someone searching for something very specific. A few seconds passed. He turned and left. But Evelyn knew. The real battle may have just begun. The digital board at lane 9 kept flashing numbers that drew raised eyebrows. Accuracy, 97.8%. Grouping rank, 4 out of 83 participants. She didn't look. Evelyn had long learned not to rely on numbers, because in the world she came from, accuracy never saved anyone. She slipped off her gloves, folded them gently, and laid them on the shooting bench like a ceremony. The creases on the weathered leather mirrored her own hands, once scorched lightly by gunpowder, once bruised from recoil mishandling, once trembling as she signed off on a personnel loss report from an operation she never had full authority over. 10 years earlier, Afghanistan. She had been the lead technical officer for a joint unit tasked with signal jamming and electronic control outside the green zone. A small unit, just 6 people. One of them was her younger brother, Jonas Moraine, 33 years old. So brilliant he was once dubbed the mathematician with a gun. When a tactical map updated with incorrect targets, a decoy signal from a civilian satellite was mistaken for hostile. Evelyn had opposed the intervention order, but it was already signed and stamped, irrevocable. She was less than 20 meters away from Jonas when the ammo depot exploded. It wasn't an ambush. It wasn't even a battle. Just a miscalculation, a single misplaced dot in the signal decryption algorithm. She survived. Jonas didn't. Neither did the other 5. Only Evelyn made it home. She cut ties with all military affiliations afterward. Declined medals, refused compensation, ignored all interview requests, and never forgave herself. Now, at Concord Ridge, footsteps echoed on the steel floor behind. Her calm male voice, steady, purposeful. "Excuse me, Ms. Moraine." She turned slightly. It was the man in the white shirt from earlier. Up close, he looked like any mid-level civil servant. But the way his hand moved, retrieving a soft leather wallet from his inner coat pocket, was discreet and practiced. She knew instantly he didn't belong to this shooting range. He didn't hold it out long, just enough for her to read the embossed line. Central Intelligence Agency, Field Division Clearance. "I'm Daniel Reyes," he said quietly. "I didn't come here for your score. I actually came for someone else, but then I saw you shoot." She didn't answer. He continued. "I was in Kandahar in 2013. I read the file. I know the name Moraine isn't a coincidence." Her breath caught. Few remembered that name. Even fewer at the CIA would ever admit to remembering it. Daniel lowered his voice as though speaking something too heavy for public air. "I'm not here to reopen wounds, but we're looking for someone with your reflexes and your resolve. It's a special program, not FBI, not military." She studied him for a long moment. "You recruit people? At a public shooting range?" Daniel gave a faint smile. "We don't recruit, we observe, and we wait for the right moment. And if I say no, then I'm just a stranger who interrupted your quiet afternoon." A pause. He took a step back as if to end the conversation. Evelyn glanced at the digital board. Her name was still ranked 4th. But in her mind, another screen lit up. Mission viability, 0%. The final message Jonas had sent before the system burned out. She turned back, her voice soft. I don't want revenge. I don't want redemption. I just want to understand how it all went wrong. Daniel nodded. Then maybe you already meet the first requirement. He handed her a black card. No address, just an encrypted phone number and a code line only insiders would recognize. C-27, Langley. Temp clearance wrecked. Evelyn held the card the way one might hold a live round, not yet chambered. She didn't know if she was ready. But for the first time in years, the pain no longer gnawed at her like a sentence. It burned like gunpowder, waiting to be turned into a calculated shot. Evelyn held the card the way one might hold a live round, not yet chambered. She didn't know if she was ready. But for the first time in years, the pain no longer gnawed at her like a sentence. It burned like gunpowder, waiting to be turned into a calculated shot. Evelyn stood at lane 12, a lane once reserved for VIPs or training officers. Now, for reasons unspoken, it was empty. And the range manager, after a brief phone call no one overheard, had led her there without a word. No spectators, no laughter. Only soundproof walls, moving target systems, and a console waiting to be activated. She tightened her worn leather gloves, eyes locked on the human-shaped targets painted in stark white, each one capable of springing up at any second within a 30-second interval. It was an emergency simulation, meant only for the properly trained. As the electronic voice announced, "Scenario initiated." Evelyn felt every nerve awaken, her hands steady, breath slow, controlled. She racked the slide, grounded her stance, eyes half open, like someone waiting for an enemy to emerge from the shadows of memory. First target, 1 o'clock 15 meters. She pivoted, fired. Center mass, second target, 9 o'clock closer. She dropped low, fired again. Right shoulder, third, fourth, fifth. Each target appeared for just 3 seconds. Evelyn missed none. Her breath was as steady as a monk's. Battle. Each shot a heartbeat, no drama, no panic, just a quiet dance between skill and instinct. Outside the firing chamber, Daniel Reyes stood beside an older man, gray-haired, light gray suit, holding a tablet streaming real-time data. She didn't miss a beat, and not a trace of emotion, the older man nodded. Most impressive, no showboating whatsoever. A final beep sounded. On-screen readout, completion rate 100%, accuracy 98.6%, AVG. Reaction time 1.4 sec. Target. The man glanced at Daniel. Her file was closed for a reason. And now there's a reason to reopen it, Daniel replied. Not everyone survives a strategic-level mistake and comes out this balanced. Inside, Evelyn removed her ear. Protection, no applause, no cheering. She didn't need it. Her eyes flicked to the stats screen, then to the black card in her pocket. She knew somewhere behind these walls, they were talking about her. For the first time, not because of what she had lost, but because of what she had just done. She quietly left the range and returned to the small break room. A bottle of water, a plastic chair, and one waiting figure. Daniel put down his phone, offering a faint smile. You made my boss, who doesn't believe in female operatives over 40, raise his eyebrows. I don't know if you'll ever dial the number on that card. But if you do want to move forward, I can take you somewhere near Langley. Near, Evelyn asked, sipping water. A soft skill assessment center for tactical personnel. No sign, no invites. Only those quiet enough to be noticed get brought in. Evelyn capped the bottle and stood. I once failed to protect lives. If I can use these same hands to prevent something like that again, I'm in. Daniel said nothing more. He simply placed a slim folder on the table. No name, no code. But when Evelyn opened it, she saw satellite maps, signal anomaly graphs, and a familiar face. A former intelligence officer involved in Jonas's final operation. No further explanation was needed. On the drive home, Evelyn passed a row of old warehouses, where she'd once tried her hand at machinery repair after leaving the service. Golden sunlight stretched across the pavement, reflecting in her rearview mirror with a rare trace of peace. She didn't know how far she'd go. But that first volley had opened more than just a door into the CIA. It had reopened a part of herself she thought long lost. Saturday, 8:42 a.m. The rear parking lot of Concord Ridge Shooting Center was unusually crowded. Late autumn wind slid between the steel columns, whistling past the metal roofing, carrying with it the lingering scent of gunpowder from the early Sioux morning drills. Evelyn stepped out of her old sedan, wearing a charcoal gray coat and a plain baseball cap pulled low over her eyes. She carried the same Glock 17 from a few days prior, this time purchased under her real name and registered properly. Though only 3 days had passed since the simulation run, the atmosphere inside the center had shifted completely. She had barely entered the main hall when whispers followed her steps. "That's her." Heard the CIA showed up, not the FBI, mind you. I thought she was just another woman trying it out. Who knew? Evelyn didn't look at anyone, but she could feel the difference. The same eyes that once looked down on her now avoided meeting hers, or if they did, they quickly darted away when caught. Some watched longer, not out of admiration, but like they were trying to decipher something hidden beneath the surface. She clipped on her hearing protection and walked straight to the weapons desk. No one asked if she was sure about the 9mm anymore. The same bald manager as before simply nodded. "We've got a new tactical drill today. If you're interested." "I know," Evelyn replied, signing her name. Lane 6. Drill. Transition combat simulation. A rapid switch between handgun and rifle under pressure, simulating close and long-range attacks. Few chose to attempt it. It required speed, precision, and punished sloppy handling with real injury risk. Evelyn stepped into position. The digital board lit up. "Ready in 5, 4, 3. At the beep, the rifle popped up from the side tray. She transitioned from Glock to AR-15 so fast the observers behind her caught only a blur. Trigger pulled, target down, then back to the UI. Handgun. By now, the tech team in the control room had begun capturing the data. A man in a black coat stood just inside the doorway, eyes fixed on Evelyn. He hadn't spoken to anyone, but the internal system had already granted him access to the live footage. His name was Carson Hale, strategic analyst at the Directorate of Special Activities, CIA, at Langley. A large screen in a small conference room displayed a 12-second delayed feed from Concord Ridge. A stern-looking older woman, Regional Director of Recruitment, Southeast Division, sipped her coffee slowly, her eyes tracking Evelyn's every firearm switch. "I don't need someone who can shoot," she said. "I need someone who doesn't lose control standing at a three-way crossroad of life and death." A younger analyst nodded. "Her reflexes are fluid, special ops level. But her psychology, it's different. She's cold, but not hardened. Calm, but not conditioned. It's like watching someone who's already died once and came back just to observe." Back at Concord Ridge, the drill ended. Evelyn set the rifle down and exhaled, softly, no dramatics. A small group stood at the end of the range. One woman, tall and slim with a backward cap, someone Evelyn remembered from the other day, approached. "You're Evelyn, right?" Her voice was quiet but firm. "I'm Layla. I saw you at Lane 9 the other day. I just wanted to say, I came here today because of you. I've never dared try a transition drill before, but when I saw you do it, I thought, maybe it's time I tried too." Evelyn nodded gently. For the first time in years, someone had come to her, not out of curiosity or judgment, but for inspiration. Layla smiled. "Oh, and those guys, none of them are placing bets against you anymore. One of them even said, if she's not a retired operative, then I'm a NASA astronaut." Evelyn chuckled, not at the joke, but because it no longer needed a reply. By the time she left the center, clouds had gathered. A black SUV sat parked at the far end of the lot. Carson Hale stood beside it. He didn't approach, didn't speak, but as she passed, he gave her a slight nod. It was no longer an evaluation. It was recognition. She returned the glance, quietly, but with deeper meaning. "I know you're watching, and I'm watching you too. If you've made it this far, thank you. That means something in this fast, noisy world. If this story speaks to you even a little, please take a moment to like it, share it, and leave a comment below. We'd truly love to hear your voice. And if you haven't yet, don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. Stories that restore dignity, reveal truth, and resonate long after the screen fades. Now take a breath, and let's return to the story. What happens next may stay with you for a very long time. Wednesday night, 7:40 p.m. The road to the auxiliary training facility lay about 25 minutes outside Concord Ridge. Evelyn wasn't given an address, only a fixed GPS coordinate. It led her to a row of old warehouses with cold steel facades and no signage. A man in a dark shirt was already waiting. He didn't introduce himself, didn't check ID, just said plainly, "The challenge lasts under 10 minutes. You can opt out at any time." Evelyn nodded. She understood. This wasn't a standard exercise. This was the kind of test reserved for candidates under silent evaluation, by people who weren't supposed to admit they were watching. The steel door creaked open. Inside, pitch blackness, save for a faint red light strip leading into a hallway. No further instructions. Evelyn stepped in. The door shut behind her with a metallic clang, a sound like the bolt locking on a place from which exits were uncertain. Overhead, a one-way glass control room. Carson Hale stood beside the regional director, a silver-haired woman whose voice was known to be as sharp as a hypodermic needle. "They call this one Black Drift," she said. "A special simulation, infiltration, rescue and hostile target recognition, all in darkness and signal distortion." "How many pass?" Carson asked. "Fewer than 12%, even among active operatives. But we're not here to see if she succeeds. We're here to observe how she fails. Inside." A flat, synthetic voice echoed through embedded wall speakers. Simulation initiated. No visible light, no predictable pattern. 3 live pop-up targets, 1 non-combatant. Penalty for misidentification. Test failure. The space plunged into total darkness. Evelyn saw nothing. Not even Awika herself. She didn't move. She waited. Calibrated her breath. Recentered her nervous system. Thunk! A sound to her left. She didn't turn. Just tilted her head slightly. Her eyes were useless. Her ears were now her only weapon. Thud. A pop-up activated paired with the faint whimper of a child. She didn't fire. Non-combatant, she noted silently, lowering. Her muzzle. 10 seconds passed. A loud impact from behind. She pivoted, shifted weight, aimed. Bang! A high-pitched ping confirmed a hit. No voices, no guidance, but she knew. Each shot, each decision was being recorded to the millisecond. In the control room, the director remained silent. One technician murmured, "Her reflexes aren't instinctive fire. They're strategic delay." She waited for a second audio confirmation, Carson added. Most fire on the first sound. Below, a false target popped up to her right, no sound. Evelyn took 1 step forward, then paused. She didn't shoot. Instead, she stepped back. 1 step, then another, turning away. On her 3rd step, a real target popped up, precisely where she had just stood. Bang! This time, no confirmation needed. She had already predicted the decoy reel switch. 10 minutes later, the lights switched on. The lights. Evelyn closed her eyes for 3 seconds to avoid shock from the sudden glare. When she opened them, a small digital panel in front of her displayed 3 lines. Target identification, 3-3, no civilian casualties. Average response time, 187 seconds from the corner of the room. Carson Hale emerged, visible now without the glass barrier. "No one told you to come here," he said. "But I came," Evelyn replied, the fatigue showing. "And you knew this wasn't a standard drill." "I knew." A long silence followed. "You can still walk away," Carson said. "We're not here to pressure anyone." Evelyn lifted a cloth to wipe her forehead, then looked up at him. "I don't want to move forward," she said. "I want to go back." Carson frowned slightly. "I want to return to the places that used to terrify me, so that this time I can look directly at everything I once failed to face." He nodded, then pulled out a thin folder. "This time, no black card. See you at Langley. Langley, Virginia. Sublevel 3 security gate." Evelyn walked through the metal corridors, each footstep logged by the facility's internal tracking system. No alarms, no voices. But she knew every movement was being monitored by at least 3 different departments. Her escort was a young woman who introduced herself briefly. "Claire, Strategic Personnel Division." She asked no questions. She simply handed Evelyn a temporary access card labeled Non-Classified Movement, Level 2A only. Just enough to reach the advanced intake room, but not enough to touch a single piece of equipment. The meeting room sat at the end of the hallway. Door closed, unmarked. Claire knocked twice, then vanished. Evelyn stepped inside. 3 people waited. 2 men, 1 woman, all in their 50s or 60s, hair graying, dressed in simple but sharp business attire. On the table, a large touchscreen displayed an internal CIA interface, OP Review Archives, KDH00134A, status redacted. Evelyn's breath paused for a moment. KDH, Kandahar. Jomi 34A, the operation from 2013. The one that cost Jonas, her brother, and their entire tech team their lives. The woman spoke first. Her voice was raspy but not cold. Welcome, Ms. Moraine. I'm Deputy Director Eleanor Rice, overseeing civilian talents linked to classified but unresolved files. Evelyn sat down. Her hands remained still, but inside her, the familiar storm of unanswered questions surged again. The second man, silver-haired, frameless glasses, pushed a tablet toward her. This is the signal breakdown you flagged. 12 hours before the detonation. Evelyn glanced down. There it was, the same red line alert she had printed and laid on the command table. Ignored then, deadly now. You recovered this? We never lost it, said the third man, silent until now. We just didn't have grounds to confirm liability, and perhaps we weren't ready to. Evelyn understood. It was clear now. She hadn't been brought to Langley for praise. She had been summoned to reopen a wound the CIA had once buried. Rice continued. You're not under investigation. On the contrary, we want to ask, if you were granted full access to the 0134A file, would you want to understand why the operation was approved despite technical objections? Evelyn looked directly into the woman's eyes. Tired, aged, but honest. I've lived with that question for 10 years. If you're offering me the chance, I won't stop at understanding. What do you want beyond that? I want to prevent it from ever happening again. Anywhere, under any form. A strange silence filled the room. The air grew dense. Everyone understood. They weren't just recruiting a skilled shooter. They were betting on someone who had survived trauma and carried an untapped mind sharpened by loss. Not dulled by it, Rice placed a file on the table. Here's a list of current watch cases. There's an ongoing situation overseas. We suspect data has been manipulated. We need someone with your background to re-verify it, but with a mindset not bound by old models. Evelyn opened the file. Inside were satellite path overlays, signal anomaly graphs, and desert zone maps, along with the name of the chief technical officer, Carlisle M. Everett. Her brow furrowed. He falsified tactical reports in the Kandahar op. We know, said Rice. She closed the file. Rice gave the final word. If you accept, we'll begin training. No oath yet. But every step after this will be real. Real missions, real risks, and real pain. Evelyn didn't need time. She hadn't come here to forget. She came to understand and to act. When do we start? Tomorrow morning. Level 4B, Behavioral Simulation Room. Will I have a weapon? Just your mind and your memory. Evelyn stood. As the door opened, light from the hallway carved her face into stone. No one called her an operative. No badge had been issued. But the eyes of the three officials followed her out, as if they had just witnessed someone about to change the game. Level 4B, Behavioral Assessment Center, Langley. Room 12, no windows, no clock, no mirrors. Just a metal table, 2 chairs, and a precisely positioned dead-angle camera nestled in the ceiling. Evelyn was invited to sit. In front of her lay a questionnaire. Not the typical, I feel happy when kind, but moral dilemmas so gray they bordered on unbearable. If an 8-year-old unknowingly transports an explosive device, Would you use force to stop them? With 3 minutes left, would you choose to rescue a hostage or capture a high-value target? If your teammate made a data error but correcting it could expose your entire unit, what would you do? Evelyn didn't take long to answer. She marked each decision without hesitation, but also without the overly moral responses typical of those trying to impress the CIA. Behind the wall, observation room. 3 people monitored her: a behavioral analyst, a forensic psychologist, and a strategic recruitment overseer. The behavioral expert spoke first. She doesn't default to humanitarian responses, but neither does she choose pure efficiency. She's running real-time risk models in her head, then acting on a principle of personal responsibility. No scapegoating superiors, no hiding behind protocol, added the psychologist. She exhibits a self-directed strategy model, rare especially in someone with her trauma history. And most importantly, the commander concluded, she shows no signs of emotional manipulation. Inside, a tall woman entered, hair neatly pinned, wearing a gray lab coat. She introduced herself as Dr. Olivia Marek, a behavioral assessment expert for counter-terrorism operations. She sat opposite Evelyn and placed a folder on the table. We've reviewed your entire service record, meeting transcripts, reaction, logs, handwritten reports from Kandahar. And, Evelyn asked, face unreadable. You were never a good fit for the military, Olivia replied, because you didn't obey. You questioned data instead of executing orders. But you're ideal for decentralized ops, where command decisions must be made with no backup. Evelyn stayed silent, then asked, why now? Olivia gave a faint smile. Because now we need people who aren't loyal to the system, but loyal to the truth. Following the interview, Evelyn was taken to a special psychological training wing. There, she was asked to play a non-combat strategy simulation, a real-time decision-making game where the player must lead a virtual team under fragmented intel. Each round presented 16 choices. Every wrong move reduced the team's access to tactical data. Evelyn became the first person in 6 months to complete the exercise without losing a single team member. But what truly surprised the observers wasn't the win. It was that she showed no emotion afterward, no joy, no surprise, no pride. She simply said, I don't like losing real people. Virtual ones don't matter. 1 week later, she received a thick dossier stamped, Evelyn Moraine, preliminary clearance granted. Inside was a short handwritten letter from Director Rice. We've seen the sharpshooter, we've now seen the strategist, but what convinced us most was your ability to resist the illusion of innocence. Behind your humility lies a strength few can carry for so long. Evelyn folded the letter and slipped it into her coat. She knew she wasn't a CIA operative. Not yet. But she was no longer an outsider either. At a CIA-affiliated facility near Norfolk, the Tactical Response Coordination Center, TRC, large screens displayed satellite images, signal coordinates, and real-time data relay interfaces. No sirens, no shouted orders. Everything unfolded. In a silence sharpened by military precision, Evelyn stood behind the operations row. No uniform, no name tag, just a handheld tablet showing a 3D model of the Sahel region, where a U.S. Special Ops unit was trying to intercept a high-level arms exchange. The tactical briefing had taken place 20 minutes earlier. Evelyn had been asked to sit in as an observer. But when the live operation map began to glitch, she was the only one who didn't panic. She quickly rotated the 3D model on an auxiliary interface, reversing the projection axis. A technique no technician had even considered, and said quietly, "The signal isn't lost, it's being folded along a display axis." The map was set to the wrong zoom grade terrain model. Re-render it with a concave projection. Everyone turned to look at her. And then the map snapped back into clarity. One field commander blurted, "Who are you?" Carson Hale stepped forward, offering no long explanation. "She's the only person in the room who doesn't need to prove anything. Let her handle the response interface." 20 minutes later, Evelyn sat in the secondary command booth, usually reserved for senior systems engineers. In front of her, a detailed interface tracking the movements of the unit in the Sahel. A 6-person special ops team, currently split by false signal interference from hostile forces. No one had assigned her command, but after what she had done, no one stopped her either. She quickly identified the GPS anomaly as signal reflection jamming, a method she and Jonas had warned about back in 2012, dismissed at the time as too theoretical. Evelyn opened the FE internal comms channel, voice steady. "Charlie team, this is secondary control. Your 2 groups are currently displaying a 500-meter offset east due to echo jamming. Recalibrate using actual wind vectors. Ignore the digital terrain." On the other end, a field agent replied, "Confirm identity, who's speaking?" She didn't hesitate. The only one who remembers how satellite waves curve under misassigned elevation bands. Silence. Then a second voice, clearly higher in rank. "Copy that. Proceeding under your guidance, at Langley. The monitoring. Room lit up with green confirmations." Regional Director Rice stood beside Carson Hale, both watching Evelyn through a live feed. Rice murmured, "She doesn't need a title. She just needs to not be excluded from the table." "And when left alone," Carson added, "she outperforms anyone we've ever trained." Inside the control room, Charlie team had regrouped. They had avoided an ambush thanks to Evelyn's recalculated positioning, which corrected a CIA map by over 300 meters. Evelyn didn't sigh, didn't smile. She simply minimized the interface, archived the entire correction log, and saved the file under the name Live Response Debrief, Decoy Signal Analysis, Jonas 3B Model. Jonas, for the first time, she used her brother's name as an official technical designation. No one else would understand, but she did. And maybe, somewhere, someone whose life was saved by her recalibration felt the echo of being rescued by someone they'd never expect. After the operation, a young officer approached her, eyes downcast. "Ma'am, sorry if this is too personal, but have you ever led a field mission?" Evelyn replied. "I led one where no one came back alive. Now, I just want to lead in a way that no one else has to die." He nodded, said nothing more. That night, at the desk in her temporary residence for external specialists, Evelyn scribbled on a small piece of paper. "I was taught that women should defer when it came to making decisions, but no one ever taught me what to do when the decision-makers got my entire team killed. From now on, I won't fight for control. I'll take it when no one else has the courage to." Monday morning, Evelyn was summoned to a Level 3 security briefing room. A sealed chamber, sterile white lights, no network connections, no external recording devices. Inside were Rice, Carson Hale, and a new presence. Retired Colonel Carlyle, Monsieur Everett, now serving as senior security advisor to a CIA-affiliated partner organization. A man Evelyn had never forgotten, and never forgiven. Carlyle was the one who had signed off on the 2013 Kandahar operation, ignoring technical warnings from Evelyn's team. He once said, "Data always conflicts. Don't let a few numbers delay the mission." And then her team, and her brother, were erased. Rice spoke first. "Colonel Everett is here to assist in the investigation into the satellite interference during the recent Sahel operation. But before we begin, he asked to meet with you." Carlyle tilted his head. "I heard you corrected the inverted map. Your model, Jonas 3B, looks strikingly close to what my team has been prototyping." Evelyn sat upright, her voice like glass. "Because that team learned from failure, from Jonas and from the silence that followed an explosion no one claimed." The room thickened. Carlyle exhaled slowly. "You're still angry?" "No," Evelyn replied. "I'm past anger, but I haven't forgotten, and I won't let anyone else forget either." Reese interjected. "Evelyn, you have the right to refuse working with Colonel Everett in the upcoming strategy unit. We'll respect your choice. But if you choose to proceed, you'll be granted full authority over signal simulation modeling at TRC, and you'll lead a new technical team." A long pause. Evelyn looked at Carlyle, not with blame, but with something deeper. The gaze of someone who had walked through darkness and come out the other side. Later, in the hallway leading back to the command center, Carson walked beside her. "You sure about this? You could have said no. No one would fault you." Evelyn stopped before the wide observation glass, overlooking the 3D operations array, the same one she'd rescued just a week ago. "I'm not here to prove Carlyle wrong. I'm here to prove Jonas didn't die for nothing." Carson nodded slowly. "Then starting today, you're no longer just an analyst. You're the lead coordinator of Complex Signal Response Strategy, new title." Evelyn squinted. "Too long. Just call me the last one to check everything." 1 week later, Evelyn's new team was formed. 3 young engineers, 1 AI simulation specialist, and 1 intern. As they entered their first briefing, one of them leaned in and whispered, "Sorry, are you the one who saved Charlie team from that ambush?" Evelyn didn't say yes. She simply raised the tactical model on the screen and said, "I didn't save anyone. I just read the map more carefully than someone else once did. Now, your job is to make sure that mistake never happens again." That night, in the small CIA-provided apartment, Evelyn sat alone, holding an old photo. 5 members of her team in Kandahar, standing in a dust storm. Jonas smiling wide, she, eyes down, focused on the equipment in her hands. She set the photo down. For the first time, no tears. Outside, the night covered Langley, but inside her the darkness had already receded. Not because of light, but because she had walked into it, faced it, survived it. No one needed to know her name, no one needed to give her credit. She wasn't doing this to prove anything. She was doing it to begin again, the way it should have started. From the very beginning. Langley, Administrative Block B, 7th floor. Friday, 6:47 a.m. A thin veil of morning mist clung to the hallway like breath that hadn't yet dissolved from the long night. In the air, something was shifting. Not footsteps, but decisions. Evelyn stood before a corridor of numbered doors. Door 01, Training Door 07, Tactical Analysis Engineering Door 12, Codenamed Personnel Door 20, no label. No guard, no indicator light. Just a biometric scanner embedded in a cold silver steel frame. She had been summoned there. 3 hours earlier, in a small meeting room, Director Rice had placed a thick manila envelope on the table in front of. Inside, temporary codename Sable 4. Operational access in undefined zones. Coordinated with OGA units. Formal recommendation for Evelyn Moraine to join the Strategic Response Force. Frontline operative status, with autonomous field authority, at the bottom of the letter, a handwritten note. This is no longer this is your invitation into the system, as a true member. Door 20 will open if you accept. If not, simply walk away. No one will ask questions. But if you step through, there's no turning back. Evelyn placed her hand on the shoulder scanner. The machine beeped. Moraine Evelyn, identity confirmed, access granted. The door opened without a sound. Inside, a small square room, white and pristine. At its center, a round table with 2 chairs. On the table, an unlabeled map, a secure comms earpiece, and a folder marked with the image of a region she had never seen. A man in civilian gray stepped out from a hidden side door. He didn't introduce himself. He simply placed one question on the table. Do you believe you'll never be recognized? Never know who gives the final order? And still choose to act? Evelyn didn't pause. I've lived 10 years. That way, the man nodded and handed her the earpiece. Then from this point on, you're no longer on the outside. This is the 20th door. The one no one sees, no one asks about, but everyone who crosses it changes. She placed the earpiece on. The table light turned green. A voice came through. Deep, clear, anonymous. Sable 4, welcome to your first operation. Codename, Ferox Warden location, Northern Georgia border. Suspected spoofing of military satellite systems. Objective, identify signal origin. Assess potential for legacy satellite manipulation. Autonomous action, no legal cover, no support. Engage at your discretion. As she stepped out of the room, Evelyn turned back to see door 20 close silently. Behind her, no farewell, no medals, no ceremony. Only one thing remained. Clarity. No more proving she belonged. Now, she acted, not to be remembered, not to be acknowledged, but for something far greater, for Jonas. For every technical team ever sidelined by power politics, and for every system that failed because no one dared say, stop. This data is wrong. 1 week later, at Dock site, the edge of Georgia's northern border, a middle-aged woman quietly stepped out of an old civilian car. No insignia, just a weathered backpack, a tablet in hand. She entered an abandoned signal relay station. A local technician glanced up. Who are you? She didn't answer with her name. She handed him a badge. No rank, just a code. Then she sat at a dust-covered console, stared at the screen filled with static, and smiled. I'm here to restore what should have been protected from the start. Back at Langley, her name would never appear on any wall of honor, but somewhere buried deep in the CIA's strategic trace system, Beside the label Sable 4, there would always be one immutable entry, the only person never swayed by power, only by the absence of precision. She had stepped through the 20th door, not to prove herself, but to begin. I don't know if my name will ever be etched into any hall of honor. I'm not sure anyone will even mention me in future briefings, but I do know this. I chose to stand, not to be remembered, but so I'd never regret being silent. And if you've ever walked through cold rooms where no one believed you had anything worth saying, if you've ever quietly done the right thing when no one stood beside you, then leave me a line. Just one. So I'll know someone out there still believes silence too can be a form of strength. And if this story moved you, don't share it for views. Share it so those who've been underestimated know that someday they too can walk through the 20th door.